Putin versus America, the global power clash. He's the man the West can't ignore. A former KGB agent turned president for life, Vladimir Putin has outmaneuvered sanctions, survived isolation, and now stands on the global stage, not as a villain, in retreat, but as a rival reshaping the balance of power. While America stares down its enemies, Putin is building a world where Washington no longer leads alone. You're watching Timeless America, where we uncover the truth behind power, politics, and history. If you're passionate about how today's headlines connect with the bigger picture, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. The spy who rebuilt Russia, it all began in the ashes of the Soviet Union. In 1991, the once mighty USSR collapsed, leaving Russia humiliated, broke, and splintered. In the chaos, one man quietly watched and waited. Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, a former KGB officer stationed in East Germany. He was not a politician. He was a loyalist, a nationalist, a strategist. In 1999, Boris Yeltsin shocked the world by naming Putin as his successor. He was unknown to the public, but not to Russia's power brokers. Within months, Putin became acting president, and then, with a steely stare and calm precision, he began rebuilding the Russian state. For the West, Russia was no longer an ideological threat, but Putin had other plans. He didn't just want to fix Russia, he wanted to restore it. The Putin doctrine, Putin's philosophy, is simple yet powerful. The world should be multipolar, not dominated by any one superpower, especially not the United States. While Washington expanded NATO toward Russia's borders and exported liberal democracy abroad, Putin moved quietly, methodically. He seized control of Russia's media, crushed the oligarchs who defied him, and rewrote the political playbook. To him, American-led globalization wasn't peace. It was colonization in disguise. And so he crafted what experts now call the Putin doctrine: protect Russian sovereignty at all costs, challenge Western dominance, use every tool, energy, military, diplomacy, cyber, to rebuild Russia's influence. It wasn't just policy. It was personal. Georgia, Crimea, and the warning shots in 2008. Russian tanks rolled into Georgia. The world gasped, but Putin tested the waters. The U.S. protested, Europe squirmed, but little was done. That same year, the financial crisis crippled Western economies. Putin saw opportunity. Then, in 2014, he made his boldest move yet: Crimea. Ukrainians had overthrown a pro-Russian president, aligning closer with the West. In response, Putin annexed Crimea, claiming to protect ethnic Russians. It was the first territorial grab in Europe since World War II, and America's response: sanctions. But no military pushback. Putin's message to the world was clear: I will not let NATO surround me. I will not let the West write the rules. And just like that, he became a new kind of threat. Not ideological like the Soviets, but pragmatic, calculating, and global. Syria. Putin enters the Middle East in 2015, while the U.S. was scaling. Back its presence in the Middle East, Putin made another move, into Syria. He propped up President Bashar al-Assad, turning the tide of a brutal civil war. Russian jets flew over Damascus, while American diplomats scrambled for influence. Why Syria? It gave Russia a warm-water naval base at Tartus, a military presence in the heart of the Arab world, an image of power. Russia, the deal-maker in the Middle East, and as America looked increasingly indecisive, Russia looked decisive. Countries like Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and even Israel began re-evaluating their dependence on Washington. The shadow war, cyber, propaganda, and interference. While Putin built military alliances, he also weaponized something more dangerous: information. The 2016 U.S. presidential election changed everything. Accusations of Russian cyber interference shook American democracy. Troll farms, disinformation, hacked emails. Suddenly, Putin didn't need tanks. He had algorithms. And even as American intelligence confirmed Russia's role, Putin smiled. In interviews. "Prove it," he dared. The truth is, the information war had begun long ago, and Putin was winning. This wasn't just about one election. It was about sowing chaos, dividing societies, and discrediting the American model. While Washington focused on enemies abroad, Putin was shaking its foundations from within. The invasion of Ukraine, 2022 to 2025, then came February 2022. Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The world watched in horror as missiles lit the skies over Kyiv. The West, led by the U.S., responded with sanctions, billions in military aid to Ukraine diplomatic isolation. But Putin didn't blink. He wagered that the West would tire before he would. And in many ways he was right. As of 2025, the war continues, grinding, brutal, unresolved. Ukraine fights with American weapons. Russia adapts with Iranian drones, Chinese support, and a hardened economy. Despite Western hopes, Putin survived. His regime remains intact. His control over Russia is firm. His alliances, surprisingly, are expanding. The war became not just about Ukraine, but a global symbol of who gets to lead the future. The China-Russia axis. Perhaps Putin's most powerful move was solidifying ties with China. Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin share more than a handshake. They share a vision. A world without American supremacy, authoritarian stability over Western liberalism. Trade systems outside the dollar tech networks, not controlled by Silicon Valley in 2023. They signed over 90 agreements spanning energy, defense, tech, and finance. Their combined influence now spans Asia, Africa, Latin America. America suddenly faces not just one rival, but a bloc. And at its heart stands Putin. BRICS Plus and the de-dollarization war enter the BRICS Plus alliance: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and now Saudi Arabia, Iran, UAE, Egypt, Ethiopia. Putin has pushed for this expanded bloc to challenge Western financial institutions, reduce dependence on the U.S. dollar, trade in local currencies, launch alternative global banks and digital payment systems. In 2024, Russia and China began transacting oil in yuan and rubles. Other nations followed. America's most powerful weapon, its currency, was no longer unchallenged. Putin's role? Architect and instigator. A man once seen as isolated now stood at the center of a new economic order: Africa, Latin America, and the new cold fronts. While America's focus remained on Europe and Asia, Putin turned to Africa and Latin America. Wagner mercenaries helped regimes in Mali, CAR, and Sudan secure power. Russia supplied cheap grain to African nations during the Ukraine grain crisis. In Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Cuba, Putin expanded military and diplomatic cooperation. These weren't random moves. They were strategic footholds, meant to encircle and pressure U.S. influence. Just like the Soviets once did, Putin now courts anti-Western governments with promises of weapons, infrastructure, and respect. Energy, oil, and the weaponization of gas. No weapon has served Putin better than energy. Europe once depended on Russia for 40% of its natural gas. When war broke out in 2022, Putin turned off the taps. Prices soared. Inflation crippled economies. Germany, once proud of its green transition, restarted coal plants. By 2025, while Europe diversified, Putin redirected flows to Asia, especially India and China. Russia's Power of Siberia pipeline and upcoming deals with Pakistan and Bangladesh now make Moscow indispensable to Asian energy. The message? You can sanction me, but you still need me. Domestic power and the myth of weakness. Western leaders often hope that internal dissent will bring Putin down. But 25 years into his rule, he's still standing, stronger than ever. Through censorship control over the military narrative. Dominance Putin has made loyalty a survival strategy. Even after protests, prison sentences, and assassination attempts on critics, no true challenger has emerged. In 2024, he announced constitutional changes allowing him to rule until 2036. His approval ratings still high, thanks to nationalism, propaganda, and fear of Western interference. Putin has turned political survival into an art form. America's strategic dilemma for the United States, Vladimir Putin is not just a nuisance. He's a strategic puzzle. He's too strong to ignore, too shrewd to outmaneuver, and too connected to isolate. Sanctions didn't break him. Diplomacy didn't sway him. Military confrontation risks global war. America's choices are narrowing, and as it juggles threats from China, Iran, and internal divisions, Putin watches and waits. 2025 and beyond, the global battlefield, as of mid-2025, here's the global picture. Ukraine remains a stalemate. BRICS Plus is gaining traction. Energy markets are reshuffling. U.S. elections loom with uncertainty. Russia's economy has surprisingly stabilized through China, the Middle East, and domestic adaptation. The world is no longer unipolar. It's fragmented, complex, and Vladimir Putin is a central actor in every region that matters. He has challenged American financial dominance, NATO's expansion, the morality of liberal interventionism, and he's done it not just with weapons, but with timing, alliances, and audacity. The man who would rival an empire. In the end, Vladimir Putin may not defeat the United States, but perhaps that was never the point. His goal? To dismantle the illusion of a single world order, to create chaos where America once commanded order, to prove that power is not just about bombs or banks, but patience, strategy, and will. The story is still being written. But one thing is certain. As long as Putin remains, America's global supremacy will never go unchallenged. If you found this deep dive valuable, let us know in the comments. Is Putin truly the greatest rival America has faced since the Cold War? Or is his time running out? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more epic stories from timeless America, where history isn't past, it's power.